far they're sitting near the top. Maybe they can solidify that top tier, or maybe they will be remaining as that middle of the pack.
And of course, we're only just now starting to close out week 2. So it's not going to mean everything as we move forward, but it will give us a good idea of where they stand. If they can take games off of G2 Esports, it would be huge for this lineup, for their confidence, and for, I mean, public perception as well. If you're taking games off G2, you have to be a favorite as we start to move towards playoffs. But picks and bans already going pretty quick. And the standard now for Misfits, Zyra and Malzahar. Very often this is heralded the Syndra first pick, and G2 Esports, they're on red side. You heard it all in the last series. They don't really get a pick what they ban.
This is also something that Misfits like to do, because Ignar will play a few unconventional supports like the Thresh and the Taric as well. But so far, we're looking at a Kha'Zix first pick to come out from Misfits, something that they did do a lot in their first week up against Giants. Looking at other champions that are available.
Teams let the Thresh through. No one expects it.
Able to get through a lot of these games in the past.
Well, and of course, Ignar, we see the Bard now locked in for him. Interested to see how he plays. He's been loving these playmaking champions. Bard is no exception to that, but I feel like Ignar is a player where you're never quite sure where he's going to take it when it comes to support picks, because he's had so much variance. The Thresh priority, of course, already taken away. Bard now locked in, and Misfits rounding out their composition with the Ashe.
So they have a decent bottom lane for the most part. I mean, you could go for something like a Karma, so you'd have a little bit more pushing power in the bottom lane for G2. I feel like Tahm Kench would be a very strong pick in particular against the Ashe, given as to how much pressure her ultimate can exert. It also mitigates a lot of the pressure that LeBlanc comes, because the moment she dashes over the wall, you now have a decent amount of time to then provide that peel. But right now, there's still a lot of debate on the side of G2 as to what they lock in.
Interesting to see. Tahm Kench now picked up, will deny the Ashe, as you've mentioned, may shut down the LeBlanc's opportunities to engage as well, but there's a lot of terrifying picks on both sides. Kha'Zix in the hand of Trick. Expect with the Jace in the top lane. Not something we've seen as much from him since Worlds. Oh, they did have a few good matchups there despite G2's overall poor showing, and really, I think we just got to keep our eyes on that mid lane. Power of Evil versus Perks. LeBlanc in the hands of Power of Evil.
As exciting as the mid lane matchup I would like it to be, the problem with Corki is he's that super safe generic mid laner that you pick into all of these aggressive assassins simply because of how difficult he is to kill. And what you can do is you can make these great map movements the moment he picks up the package, but I feel like that when you're running a Kha'Zix and a Jace, you actually want to send a lot of your focus up to the top half of the map. Bottom lane realizes that it's going to get pushed underneath already, so we may see them make an early rotation up to the top side and just put all of the focus onto shutting down that global pressure of Shen.
Interested to see how the teams adapt, how they play out this draft. A lot of pseudo-global pressure on both sides between the Tahm Kench. You got the Rek'Sai, the Shen with the true global coming in as well. And excited to see how Trick is going to handle this Kha'Zix pick coming in, because it's a lot of carry pressure going in on him, whereas Kakao is picked kind of the more stable, more reliable jungler there.
Well, it was actually great having Trashy on the desk, because he talked a lot about these two junglers and how he feels that they have very similar styles. They're very calm, collected Korean junglers that are very calculated in their aggression. And I'm excited to see how well Trick can execute on this Kha'Zix, whether or not he will play more like Jankos or whether or not he will be more, you know, I'm just going to take my time, I'm going to look for where I can take these advantages. And if he's going to take them anywhere, as we were discussing, I expect it to be more towards the top side of the map, simply because not only do you want to try and shut down the Shen to avoid that level 6 power spike that he has with his ultimate, but you also want to try and get this Jace ahead, because if you can set yourself up to have this powerful split pusher in the form of Jace, then you mitigate one of the strengths that Misfits have, in the sense that they have globals with the Shen and Rek'Sai to set up a 1-3-1, or the LeBlanc later into the game.
Well, we are holding on for just a moment before we see how this early game unfolds. We do have one small peripheral issue. Before we can get into game,
peripherals are key. We've learned that today.
We've heard that. Many great anecdotes coming in from Crepo himself. Do you have an energy drink? I think if we don't spill it on something, I don't feel like we're really casting.
Oh, yeah, my notebook just isn't the same without an energy drink on it, you know? But there are a lot of question marks around this game in particular, simply because we mentioned it earlier on. How good are Misfits is really the big question. We saw in their very first week that nerves did affect them. Power of Evil was talking about on the desk that Hansama, this is his first big game on the stage. Same for Ignite, he's now playing in the LCS. Kakao still getting used to things while his experience is good. Playing in a new team, like there was a lot of just nervousness coming into their very first game. But after that first game, they suddenly collected themselves, they got better, and I feel like we've seen a strong performance from them ever since. Meanwhile, in G2, they've returned to the LCS like it was just another day in the office. You know, they did stumble up against Fnatic. They did fall down to a couple of really good plays, and I mean, like, you have to credit where credit is due, because Fnatic did play well in that series, and they put G2 up against it. But other than that, I feel like G2 have just really been like, okay, this is our place. This is where we've dominated for the last 2 splits, and now you're coming on our turf. Okay.
The big thing is going to be interesting, but of course, with the drafts complete, the pause over, it's time to get into game 1 as last splits champions G2 take on the team that rose from last season's Challenger Series, Misfits.
Misfits versus G2 is going to be not an easy match for us, but I think in the end it will be G2-0.
It's Ignite that lands, and Kakao's coming for support, leaps forward for first blood! And that's the way you want your legendary jungler to start game 1.
G2 versus Misfits. The once and potentially future kings of Europe. This is the all-new, all-star talent lineup rising from the Challenger Series, picking up new players along the way and dominating their first 2 matches. So many questions to see how this will unfold. And you brought it up earlier, Hansama, that anxiety, those early games, and I'm wondering if he's going to experience that again here, because this is Sven and Mithy on the bottom side of the map.
Well, we heard after his game versus Rocket in that interview where he said, you know what, I am a little bit nervous going up against the best bottom lane in Europe, but he feels that if they play properly, then perhaps they can get themselves at least, well, he was saying that maybe we can get 1 game off, you know? But hopefully they feel a little bit more optimistic now that they're actually
here.
Well,
Perk's clearly not short of confidence. It's going to be a G2-0.
Yep.
I feel like you got to feel good. I love it when players make comments like that, but you have to feel so bad if they start to lose a game. Because that's the thing that people clip and replay for the entirety of your career.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, looking at the early game, we've already talked a little bit about the pushing lanes, but top lane should go in favor of G2. They have the Jace. He's going to have the advantage over the Shen, especially in terms of wave clear that the Shen can't really match. In terms of the mid lane, usually the very early push will go ever so slightly in favor of Corki, but you have to be so careful once LeBlanc gets a couple of levels under a belt. Meanwhile, it looks like Expect. He's actually trying to already start off with his aggression.
Doesn't have to be scared of the level 2s coming in. One person may get it. Kakao going to smite it away in the end, but a decent amount of harass as well as knowledge of that jungle pathing. Brave play coming in from Expect, but knows there's no real threat from a Shen level 1 or a Rek'Sai level 1. Short of some interesting skill choices.
Yeah, that's the right way to invade. I mean, a Zac and a Poppy flash back into my mind, but that's a very smart way to just get a bit of extra harass down. It also forces Alfari to take the long route back to his lane. But on the other side, for Misfits, they have the push on the bottom. They already get themselves the early push. You can see that with the Bard, one of the best level 1, level 2s in the game, can put a lot of hurt down onto a Tahm Kench in particular. And so, unfortunately for G2's bottom lane, they just have to respect it. And I think this is a great test for both bottom lanes, because for Hans Sama and Ignard, they couldn't have asked for anything better, really. When you're going up against the best bottom lane in Europe, you definitely want to be in that winning matchup. And now we get to see how well the G2's bottom lane also deal with it.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. We'll give him a couple more levels before we focus in there again and set our eyes on the jungle. Now, Kha'Zix, not considered that ganking jungler, although maybe getting a little taste for Bard there. Not considered the ganking jungler in the end for Trick, and not really a whole lot of CC for him to get into these lanes. Feels like it could be an issue because Kakao should have no trouble sort of looking for ganks in a lot of these early lanes.
I feel like that's a very good point. When you look at the level 6 mark in particular for both mid and bot, there's a lot of opportunity for Kakao to set up those early ganks. But when you're Trick, you kind of want to aim to play towards the top side of the map because that's where your strong area is. You could look to try and set up something bot, but I feel it's so risky when you have the exhaust on top of Ignard, his ability to just disengage from the fights with the portal. Like, it's very risky to try and invest that, especially with how poked out you can get down in the bottom lane. And in the mid, really, it's quite difficult to gank in Corki lane, as you were talking about earlier. But what you can do is just wave clear like this. You just throw down the phosphorus bomb. You just prioritize on trying to get as much of farm as possible because you want to wait until around the 8-minute mark when you have the package.
And it makes me sad because this is exactly what you're talking about. This is not the LeBlanc's going to kill somebody, they're going to fight to the death sort of lane matchup. It's about pushing. It's flashbacks to the Victor mid lane where you laser and walk away.
It's definitely not that bad.
I mean,
it's not as the Victor, but
yeah.
It's definitely a little bit slow. The focus is on the farm. But I mean, I'm really happy actually that the focus for the junglers is going to be on the top side of the map because something that the analyst desk were talking about was Alfari versus Expect. Now, Expect does have the advantageous matchup in terms of the 1 versus 1, but that's not to say Alfari can't be one of the big carries for his team because he has that global impact. He has the ability to make plays around the map. And I feel like that this will be a very important lane in deciding how the entire game will progress.
Power of Evil making his way to the top side of the map. Expect potentially going to get picked off here. Looks like the end, both champions just backing off. Alfari taking his time to recoup his farm. But interesting, we talk about all of the pressure being on the top side of the map. We set our eyes now on the bottom lane and a lot of faith in Misfits for their bot lane to hold out here, that there isn't going to be any crazy aggressive plays and that they can just be comfortable leaving Ignar and Hans Sama on their own.
Well, the fact that Sven and Mithy are going even in this matchup already at the level 4 mark just pays dividends to how talented these individuals are. And this is a great opportunity for us to talk a little bit more about these two supports, our featured matchup. The interesting difference between Mithy and Ignar is that Ignar tends to be the style of player that likes to roam around the map, try and find those picks, try and make those plays, and he moves a lot with his jungler. Whereas Mithy, he tends to spend a lot more of his time sticking with Sven and enabling him to be that big hyper carry later on.
And when we look at the differences here, we can see that the percentage difference may not mean too much to the average viewer, but we look at it, it's about 45 seconds. I took the time to ask the stats team about this. So pretty significant difference there when you think about how much time Ignar is going to be spending out of lane in the early phases of this game. And you can see him constantly kind of hovering towards the top side of the lane as well. You see a little bit of action coming here on the bottom side, and it looks like I was wrong. It looks like they're not going to leave the bottom lane alone because Cow is here and could look for the setup because Sven is caught. Mithy just going to say no, but now Mithy potentially in trouble. Kakao coming on the backside. He's going to have to flash over, trying to get it. Knockup goes in. Sven could go down. Could it be first blood for Misfits? All coming in from the shed. Going to connect. Mithy now in trouble, but Mithy denies any further engage. Power of Evil on the backside. There's nothing left for G2. They've overstepped. Power, is he going to look to make it a double? Mithy, can he get one back? Oh, double kill to start the game off for the LeBlanc. Power of Evil popping off.
Could not be a better start for Power of Evil. And this is the strength of Shen, using that ultimate to teleport to the bottom. This is the level 6 power spike that we were discussing, and Misfits take advantage of it. So many great things just come together to not only give Misfits the first blood, but to give them the first tower of the game too.
Huge advantage going in their favor, but G2 aren't giving it up for free. Expect and Trick are pushing in on the top side, but this insanely proactive play is what we've come to know Misfits for already. So many dominant early games, but I don't think we expected it here against G2.
The great thing about this play is that Mithy isn't really expecting the gank, so he's already used his consume on Sven. He's forced to flash. Misfits realize they can go for the dive because look at mid lane, it's already been pushed in and the roam is already coming out from Power of Evil. This is exactly how they played earlier on in their first week of the LCS, and they're doing it once more. To add insult to injury, you also had the Shen ultimate coming in to keep Kakao alive, and this is just overall fantastic teamwork and another great game for Misfits. Early game for Misfits. Early game.
We have to keep our eyes on that late game, but we're not there yet. And right now, the gold stands 1,000 in the favor of Misfits. And Hans Sama and Ignar put the pressure down on the bottom side, are now just going to swap out, set their sights on the next tower in front of them. This is the kind of clean, clinical play we expect from teams when they get a lead. Rotating the spot lane around, forcing down these towers, using their pressure advantage. Now it's on G2 to respond because they're already at a decent deficit.
Well, they're actually sending Expect up to the top side of the map as well. Bear in mind that we are approaching the 8-minute mark, so the package is going to be available for Corki. I feel like sending Expect to the top side, I don't feel like you're going to gain very much from doing that. The problem for G2 right now is the fact that the wave is so far pushed up towards Alphari that it is incredibly dangerous for Expect to overextend in that lane. But you could look to set up a dive in the bottom. You could look that with the package, you move to the bottom side of the map, but just look at the vision coming out from Misfits. They have the entire river watered. They're fully prepared for this rotation from Perks. And I feel like the Misfits have just come prepared.
And one thing we can say about Kakao, we kind of like when we see him on the Cosmos because he is such an aggressive player, can snowball these leads, but so much more vision coming out from him when he plays this Rek'Sai. Absolute control of the bottom side, as you mentioned, and while Trick is there to make sure that nothing bad happens to Expect, it's a strong start, although it may not be a good start for Perks. It's a clone. I was baited too.
I'm just really impressed that Perks just held his own there. He was super confident. Here we go, Alphari.
A little bit of a trade. Arrow does go in. Expect now in trouble. Is going to try to flash out. Knock back on the Thundering Blow. Maybe looking for a little bit more acceleration gate. No flash from Kakao. Burned it earlier. Bard with the lockup. Gonna have to time it perfectly as they go in. Alphari getting it. Perks is here. They may look to turn this back. Trick has so much damage. Kakao now in trouble. Ignar pulling back. Misfits making it a 1-for-1.
This is the risk that we were talking about, though, as Power of Evil. He's going to lock up Mithy. Don't think too much is going to come off the back of it, though. Regardless, very nice play once again coming out from Misfits, and good response from G2 to get themselves something back. I feel like the Misfits, they just wanted to take advantage of the fact that G2 was so overextended in the bottom lane. But the problem is that they couldn't play around the package. It was still available for Perks. That enabled him to rotate with Trick to turn the fight around. And they end up trading 1-for-1, but Misfits get a dragon off the back of it.
Yay, Cloud Drake!
Yay, Cloud Drake! Rotations, you love them. Guess what will help you make those go faster?
By 0.5 seconds. Is that what we figured out? We did the math last year.
You need, I think, yeah, it's like by 0.5 seconds with one Drake, yeah.
strong confidence.
Bleh.
Bleh, I think.
So,
well,
really good setup. Again, I feel like you could also argue this is a bit of a misplay from Expect, so being so overextended and having no vision of the bottom lane from Misfits. Also smart from Kakao to wait for Alphari to be the initial tank, but because he was the initial tank, that allowed them to get that burst damage onto Alphari. So they traded 1-for-1 overall, but as you mentioned, they then rotate around to the Drake. And I mean, when you look at the overall of what this actually means, Expect is now going to lose a lot of farm because that bottom lane is going to be pushing towards Alphari once again. And it's going to be even harder for Expect to get the farm that he needs.
And farm also crucial for this Jace. Needs a few items under his belt, wants to be able to pull ahead, wants to be, I feel like, so frequently that split pushing threat. And if he can't 1v1 this Shen reliably, they're not going to be able to do anything with this pick.
Exactly. Remember what we were talking about in the draft. G2 need to invest more resources into the top half of the map because they want to set up Jace to be that prevalent split pusher later on that Misfits would have struggled to deal with, but he's so far behind right now. In terms of farm, he's doing all right, but he's going to be suffering in terms of experience. Alfari's going to hit his spikes so much sooner, and Misfits are going to have so much more options when it comes to the mid game.
And while G2 are moving down to take this tower, looking to find an advantage for themselves, Misfits have placed so much vision on the top side, and that's going to be a danger zone for G2 for the next 3 minutes, potentially longer, depending on how much they're able to clear out. Now, Alfari kind of having a bit of a field day here with Expect. Trick being there doesn't even dissuade him for these aggressive trades.
So now G2, they've actually rotated the bottom lane round to the mid, and they've got Perks dealing with Power of Evil in the top side of the map, but they realize that given that Trick has been spotted in the bottom lane, Kakao is now moving into the enemy jungle. He's already set up vision, and Perks is forced to back away simply because he just doesn't have the jungle support.
And Sven and Mithy, aware of this, now pushing in the mid lane, looking to get something back as the top lane tower is set to fall. But a Bard is here, Ashe is here, the whole team is collapsing. And G2 looking just a little bit split. Be ready for the engage, be ready for the Ashe or the Bard. Here comes the Rex side. Temper Fake goes in. Sven is in trouble. Mithy waiting. He can devour if he needs to. Not sure if he's going to quite yet. Kakao's going in. Alfari delivered. Mithy in trouble. Expect still alive. Dishing out with damage. He can't. Power People goes in. Trick's in the back lines. Hansama in trouble. Stealth up from Trick. Maybe looking for a kill on the backside, but Mithy gonna get taken down. That's the double for Power of Evil. Wants to make it more. Goes in for the triple. Misfits crushing G2.
Question marks were surrounding Power of Evil, but he is now 5-0, and Misfits, they're looking to take down this mid-tier 1 turret.
And we have to remember, Perks was the guy, LeBlanc's not that bad. LeBlanc's not that powerful. He picks up 2 wins on it, puts it in the hands of someone else, and they start taking it right to him. He has to feel frustrated.
I mean, the challenge was issued to Power of Evil. Hey, I don't think you play LeBlanc. Apparently, ladies and gentlemen, yes, he does. Great start to this matchup. And let's backtrack to how this all came out to be, because G2, as you mentioned, they wanted to try and get the push down mid. They realized that LeBlanc was topside. They realized that the wave was going towards them bot, and they wanted to try and force this play, but things just didn't go the way they wanted because it was Kakao that initially set up the initiation. G2 gets split up because Trick is going on the back line. Mithy is trying to provide peel for Sven, and overall, because of how chaotic it was and how split up the side of G2 were, on top of the fact that Power of Evil already had 2 kills at the start of that fight, it was just not an opportune moment for them to really go for that engagement.
And it's so scary for this G2 lineup to fall behind. Now, we expect Misfits to be a team to get a big early lead, but not this big this early on. 3K at 13 minutes is massive. G2 need to do something to get back here because they don't have CC. They don't have reliable late game team fights. There's not a whole lot for here, but there is a lot for Sven. And it's a ride in the mouth with Mithy.
We have to remember, though, that G2 have been in this situation before. Even against Rocket, they were actually at a very early game deficit thanks to a few of these cross-map plays that happened in the early game, but then G2 punished Rocket and found very easy ways back into things. And this is the question mark for Misfits. They've been criticized for their late game decision-making in the past. They've now had 2 best-of-3 series under their belt. And the question is, can that experience be enough to help them hold this lead against the Kings of Europe?
Big question marks. Already their vision game been pretty on point this time around, but what is next? What is the next objective, Vedius? What do we want from Misfits if they are to continue on this path of sort of dominating the early game?
Well, you now have to try and split G2 up because when you look at the side lane power of Misfits, it is incredibly strong. You can put Alfari up against both Expect and Perks and he will do fine just keeping the wave pushed. Power of Evil is the real one that you have to be very scared of, which is why they put Perks in there because he has a little bit more disengage opportunities. But notice that Kakao, wherever Power of Evil has gone, Kakao has been nearby. He's been providing vision. He is enabling Power of Evil to be as aggressive as he wants. And this is great to see from Kakao because when we look back to how he was playing originally, this is not what he was investing in. He was trying to snowball lanes and trying to set up a lot of ganks rather than investing vision to enable his team.
It's a refreshing change of pace, almost like we see a completely different player based on what champion he's coming out. The aggressive
it's kind
Kakao,
of like the old
solo
Kakao
carry.
from old, you know, the 2014 Kakao. This is the legendary jungler that so many times we wanted to see, and it's nice to see him playing very much like he once was.
And it's refreshing to see a variety of styles come out here as well. And while it's all praise for Misfits, we do have to remember G2 aren't out yet. Yes, they are in a very large deficit, but as we've mentioned, they've come back from worse. And it's going to be curious to see what they do here, what opening they find, because they've been known to be a team to take risks. And where will we see them take that risk if it means coming back?
Well, the thing you also have to remember about G2 is they scale pretty well. When you look at the amount of poke that they have, it's very difficult for Misfits to actually siege, because you have to try and force either a fight around a neutral objective, or you have to go for a dive. And so far, a lot of what Misfits have gained are from either the dive in the bottom lane, or forcing G2 into a team fight in the mid. And now G2 realize, okay, we've lost a lot of objectives, but we just have to play safe. We have to sit at the back line. So Misfits, to counter this, I feel like we'll start to see a lot more once the Baron spawns. We'll get to see them moving up into the top half of the jungle, invest a lot more vision into that area, and start forcing G2 into the darkness where Misfits can look to try and get an opportunity.
So many tools to start a pick as well. LeBlanc alone may be enough to take out any member of G2 if they give her much longer. Exhaust going to play Savior for this otherwise squishy team. But it's good that you kind of bring up the poke here. Corki, Jace, Varus, so many tools, but it's no longer the Jace with Tear of the Goddess. It's not the Varus that we've seen where there's been Tears, there's been Essence Reavers, where this is the Blade of the Rune King build coming out for Sven.
Yeah, it looks like that he's building for a little bit more sustain, building more towards the tank and team fighting, less interested in going towards that tank, and I feel that it's better against Shen. We heard Deficio talking about this the other day, where he doesn't think it's the optimal build into someone like a Shen who gets a lot of value out of stacking armor, and I feel like going up against this composition, especially with perks being at such a deficit, you can actually early stack that armor pretty heavily when your main damage threats are both the Jace and the Varus. So this is probably a large reason as to why Sven's avoiding that sort of flat penetration build and going more towards the scale.
Makes a lot of sense. Of course, lethality not buffed on this patch quite yet.
Nope, not yet.
May look forward to it in the future, but in the meantime, really only good against those more vulnerable members. But has an alternative build path. Have to see how this one works out. We've seen it a few times in Europe already to see how effective it is in team fights. How long Perks can survive in the side lane.
Was that wow, that was a flash from Perks, really respecting the power of Evil, but also he's respecting the fact that Kakao has full control over the top side of the jungle right now. And again, we just have to backtrack to what we were talking. Kakao, it's not just Power of Evil in this side lane, it's the shadow of Kakao followed by Power of Evil, because he is just tracking that mid laner everywhere he goes and just enabling him to be as aggressive as he wants.
And I love when we look at the scorelines of Misfits, how much they're playing as a team, how well they're using the global pressure from this composition. 1-1-5 for the Shen, 0-0-6 for Kakao, for Hansama, for Ignar, 5-0-0 for Power. He missed out on one kill, but that's almost 100% kill participation across the board. Everyone being involved here.
Great to see. So for the time being, things will slow down a little bit. Baron is going to be spawning in about 1 minute 20 seconds. And in all honesty, I think that this is just a little bit of a surprise for the side of G2, because as you mentioned earlier, Kings of Europe, these guys have been incredibly dominant for a very long time. And even though this is only the first game, I kind of expected a little bit more from them in the very early game. I feel like that this is a play that they have played around before. They should have been able to predict. And I feel like that perhaps they were just caught unawares by the early pressure from Misfits.
Yeah, just that excellent first dive on the bottom side. Worked out so well for Misfits, gave them the lead that they wanted, set them off now, as we can see, about a 4K gold lead to back them up as we approach the 20-minute mark. As we approach that Baron being on the table, now that is, we've had a lot of questions about how Misfits set up Barons, if they're patient enough, if they can lay down the appropriate vision. We saw it work out very well when they had Malzahar to sort of deny the steal opportunities, but that's kind of a big question for me, if they're going to be able to be diligent and be patient in this game when it comes to taking that big objective.
Well, I mean, already they've got a fair amount of vision in the top side. If we could just look at the vision that Misfits has, you can see that over the top half of the map, it's actually pretty littered, and they're already in a good position to set up towards that Baron come the 20-minute mark. Now, remember, the Baron is not the objective. The goal for Misfits at the 20-minute mark is just to make it a point with which G2 are not comfortable giving Misfits freedom over. So you force G2 to either face check or put themselves in a difficult situation that Misfits can then punish using this fantastic pick potential that they have with the Ash Arrow, with the Bard Ultimate, with the flank from LeBlanc. It's all about just using the Baron as more of a bait rather than as an objective that you want to try and tunnel on.
It's going to be interesting to see how exactly this works out, because we've seen so many team compositions this week with 2 damage threats. Power of Evil and Hansama, the damage threats for Misfits. everyone but Mithy is a damage threat on the side of G2. But if Power of Evil and Hansama can play well, if they can be protected, I feel like it's going to be easy for them to just pick off each member of G2 one at a time.
I mean, that would be nice. And I mean, when you look at who's the front line for G2, something that we were briefly discussing during Champion Select, come the later stages, they have Misfits, have Alphari and Cacao. You know, they act as that solid, reliable front line that Mithy's not going to be able to get behind. Trick, sure, he can dive over the back, but he's going to be separated from both the Varus and the Corki, who are still trying to deal with these frontline tanks. And I think this is one of the big question marks. This is why getting an early lead for G2 was pretty important, especially for Expect.
Good news is all these AD threats and double black cleavers to kind of shred through the two tanky members. Additionally, Corki going to split up a little bit of that damage to Magic, but primarily AD coming in here. Right now you can see G2 maybe not content to be on the back foot, but playing very intelligently around it. Not a single member overextending, backing off, conceding vision where they have to, and not giving anything up. The ball really is in Misfits' court at this point.
So this is where I want to see Misfits start to abuse the Baron vision. Look at the control they have once again. They've already extended very far up, and this is when they can start playing around. The Baron take is actually fairly slow with a LeBlanc, but you just have to try and draw G2 in. That's the whole point, and then you use how powerful this LeBlanc is to get yourself a pick, and then with the numbers advantage, that's when you can look to prioritize this mid-turret. But it is this mid-turret that is making things just a little bit too difficult for the side of Misfits, because it still enables G2 to play up, to play safe towards the center part of the map.
You got to think Misfits, they know they're in the lead, but do they have the confidence to pull the trigger? Because if you mis-execute against this G2 lineup, things go very bad very quickly. You give any member of this team a couple of extra kills and things will go their way. Now Misfits, they've had absolute dragon control this far, but it's been absolutely terrible when it comes to the RNG rolls. Triple Cloud will make them fast as lightning, but not going to be mountains.
This actually makes it really fast, like really, really, really fast. The problem that you have for investing all these resources into the Dragon is that now you're going to lose value over the top half of the jungle. And this was something that we did see from Misfits earlier on in their game versus Rocket. And the problem that you have is that if you invest all this time and effort into getting all this vision and then not playing around it, then it just enables G2 to continue to stall out, because now they know, hey, there's nothing to worry about. They've got Drake off the board. It's a Cloud Drake, so it's not that bad. And now, like, there's no way they're going to go for a Baron, because even if they do, we can just meander on up and just drop a ward in. So Misfits have kind of lost a lot of map control in order to get that neutral objective, which is the Drake.
Still maintaining the 4K gold lead, though, so it's going to come down to how they use these Drakes, because they are fast. They can outmaneuver G2 when it comes down to it, but...
Look at it. I mean, that Ashe is literally jogging. Not the little walk. She's literally just striding away. You know, like, dun, 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 dun. Look at that! Look at that! It's like
the Vedius animation breakdown. Oh my gosh, really? Ladies and gentlemen, let me know when the game stalls out. Vedius gets a little crazy.
I break into song, I mean. But at least now they're regaining the vision over the top side of the map. I mean, we talk a lot about vision, but it's really important because that's how you get the game to progress.
You place the vision, you kill the people, you take the stuff, well, you win the game.
You try to bait them in because they think you're taking the stuff, and that's when you kill the people. It's all about the mind games.
Right now, Misfits consistently playing aggressive, consistently trying to get wave control in the mid lane, but in the meantime, Expect has been free to farm up, as has Perks. See a small deficit for the top lane, mid lane just about even, and bot lane with a small lead for G2. So while things were pretty grim there for a brief moment in time, G2 members are getting their items a little bit later than they wanted, but oh, Perks maybe finding the engage here. LeBlanc gonna run forward, Mithy moving in as well. Some disengage coming out from Misfits, not wanting to waste any cooldowns to force an engage.
So that principle is exactly what Misfits want to be doing, because they have control. G2 Perks is clearly very afraid of face-checking that brush, so he's using the rockets to check out, but a really good sidestep from Perks. He didn't have to use his flash, didn't have to use his Valkyrie. Perks isn't really the ideal target you want to land the pick on, but the principle behind what Misfits are doing is exactly what we want to be seeing from them. So they have the right idea, just so far they haven't been quite able to.
The thing we have to remember, there's not a whole lot of room to be incredibly critical here. It's very early, as you mentioned, they may struggle to take a Baron. It's not like they can rush that down. So giving a lot of respect to G2, and if they rinse and repeat here, eventually they will catch someone.
The problem is that you lose the value that you have from this LeBlanc right now, because note that Power of Evil is on 3 items. He's already completed his Void Staff, compared to Perks, who's still halfway through completing some of his items. You know, he's got himself the Hex Drinker, which is great. He's working towards the Gunblade. But your LeBlanc is so strong right now, and you really want to try and abuse this fact. But Misfits are really struggling to figure out how exactly they can do that. And this is the thing, this is the experience we were talking about. This is the big debate as Perks goes in the mid.
Moving forward. Just a bit of poke being turned down. Maybe wanted to burn the package. Hoping to catch somebody off guard, but nothing going to follow up. We saw briefly the damage dealt to champions there, and you can see Perks with all that poke is currently outscoring Power of Evil, but hasn't made too much of a difference quite yet, as Power of Evil is still very clearly ahead when it comes to kill score.
Oh, Power of Evil lands a chain.
Not the target that he wanted. Perks gonna have to hop to safety, is eaten up just in case. Cannot afford to have him locked down, cannot afford to lose that wave clear in the mid lane.
But you're also seeing how difficult it is for Misfits to actually siege, because there's a lot of wave clear every time Misfits try to do something aggressive. You have the Tahm Kench there to provide safety. I'd maybe like to see a bit of a risk, and this is something that I think is worth talking about, because Misfits, they are very calculated, but this willingness to take risks doesn't feel like it's there. You could use the Bard ultimate to maybe land it onto Perks to then focus the tower, or you can throw that ultimate onto the tower or Mithy to then try and get a pick, you know? They could take these gambles, they could take these risks and try and abuse the fact that they have a 5-0-0 LeBlanc, but they're playing it slow, they're playing it calculated, and I feel like that's not something you can necessarily afford to do against a team like G2.
Oh, they're not taking risks now. Sven and Perks potentially going to get locked up. Chain CC comes in, Perks flashes out, Mithy saves him, so no follow-up there. Ignard very low. Decent CC coming from Afari. Perks not going to get popped yet. Yes, he does go down. Hansama, Power of Evil into the backline, exhausted, locked up there instantaneously. Beautiful arc coming in from the Varus. G2 holding on to the tower for now, but they have to be careful. Health bars are low. Kakao is on the side. Trick has to back up. Expect has to pull back. Flash in. He's knocked up. Mithy, the stun comes in from Ignar from the side. Expect goes in to try to trade one back. He's going to get it. But Misfits take control of the mid lane, and there's the aggression we were looking for.
So 2 for 3 overall in the favor of Misfits, but they get the tower, and that is the most important thing. They were dancing around the river, trying to bait G2 out of their comfort zone, and they finally pull the trigger. Ignar uses his ultimate to set up the play, and this is where things start to open up for Misfits. Now with a 9-3 kills advantage, as well as a 5k gold lead, this is where things start to look really exciting. But look at this, you can see G2, they're trying to clear a bit of vision out, but both of the 2 carries from G2 end up getting locked up. Initially it looks pretty good, they can disengage, Ignar's already being forced out of the fight, but that taunt onto Perks was so good from Alphari, followed up by the knockup from Kakao resulting in his death. They abused the fact that LeBlanc now has a cooldown on the W back, so they're able to get the kill onto Power of Evil, who is a little bit overzealous. And now Misfits, they just want to force G2 away from the turret and then make their way back to pick up that neutral objective. So overall, promising fight, maybe a little bit overzealous from Misfits. And now they're looking for a play on bot.
Hero's going to go wide. Trick not going to get taken out, but that could have been the start to Baron for Misfits if he ever does fall. Sven now back in the mid lane, pushing out, taking advantage of the brief loss of pressure from Misfits as multiple members are revealed on the bottom side. Look at the damage in that last team fight. And you wonder why there's a Rise picture.
Why was there a Rise? Yeah, and I was like,
wrong graphic, wrong graphic.
That Nautilus did so much damage.
Get it sorted in a second. But you can see Alphari, consistently combining with Kakao to make those excellent flanks in the fight. It looked like Perks maybe caught off guard in that last engagement. Went forward, not seeing the flank coming in.
Oh, here we go.
The flank onto Alphari. Time for a little taste of his own medicine. Perks moving in. Flash. Oh, Trick goes over. That's the classic switcheroo. Alphari making it to safety. Ignar hits the blast cone just in case.
You can see the Misfits were actually a little bit confused as to what they should be doing right there, because you had Power of Evil, Kakao, and Hans all grouped up together. They initially considered pushing up mid, but they also decided that maybe we should go for the dragon at the same time. They were a little bit indecisive, so I feel that it was a good thing that Alphari was able to escape from that collapse, because if they hadn't, I feel like Misfits might not have been able to gain very much off the back of it.
In the end, Misfits do gain the Mountain Drake. Pretty important for them to have overall as well, because it's going to make it that much easier to take the Baron, but we look across the board at the itemization coming out for Misfits. Power of Evil is going to have no problem killing anyone. Ashe is quickly approaching that Infinity Edge point, and both of the tanks are looking nigh unkillable.
GA second for Kakao. I mean, it definitely does give some pretty valuable stats, but the fact that he decided to prioritize that is very interesting, as Alphari, no flash.
Very fast. Now a little slower. Perks pulling back. Mithy the one who's caught up. No one there to save Mithy. Mithy's now set to fall down. Do they have enough damage to bring it down? It looks like they do. Hansama Getting the kill on the front side. Ignar goes over the wall, maybe looking for a flank. Trick trying to get in there, trying to get the follow-up. Expect is on the backside, but Power Buell does so much damage, has to hop out. Expect threatening the back line there. They're going to have to back out. They're going to have to respect.
Whoa!
Oh, that damage! Perks! Well, that's why you picked Corki.
Hansawa was not expecting that. Still has the heal, still has the flash. 40-second death timer, and look at the health bars from G2. They're all actually in a pretty good position right now. Kakao is pretty low. Afari's at about 50% HP. And G2 can just reclaim a lot of the vision that they've been so desperately trying to get back for the last 10 minutes of this game.
Oh no, Baron's still aggroed. Unintentional from the Runan's Hurricane. Means that a lot of health bars are going to drop. G2 may not be able to take the Baron. They do get down a decent amount of vision. They will make sure that Misfits cannot take it in exchange. Gold lead now about 1K. Cow's a little bit of a troll. Stops the expect back there. Good decision overall.
So, what this means to the game now is that we're probably going to get more stalling for G2, because the fact that they were able to go even in that trade, as we talked about, is now going to enable them to get a lot more vision back over the Baron area. Another objective that Misfits are now going to struggle to actually play around. Dragon is a possible objective to work towards, but I feel that G2 have actually just done a great job of stalling things out. They've managed to play around the big power spike that Power of Evil had accrued for himself at the 20 to 25 minute mark, and now he's going to have less of an impact as more magic resistance is starting to get stacked up, as more health is being built on the side of G2. But the big risk is the fact that, again, there is no significant front line for the side of G2, and that means that this LeBlanc pick is always going to be a massive damage-dealing threat that G2 have to somehow play around.
Now, this is the big thing that we have to look at as the gold graph appears on your screen, is that Misfits, they have this lead, and when they execute, they've been beautifully doing so. But the favor has been there since the start of the game, and that gold lead isn't growing. You can see it rise slowly and just starting to stagnate. They've maintained that for so long, but it has not been able to snowball. They haven't been able to turn it into anything greater.
But I like the fact that they have been trying more to land these picks. They have been using the Bard ultimate, they've been using the Ashel to just try and find opportunities where they can get a couple extra kills on the borders. Now we see a... Oh, okay, so the teleport actually back to mid is because he was worried about the collapse. He had no vision over the bot side of the jungle, so that was just a safe play coming over from Expect. I feel that it's just the correct thing to do in that situation, rather than even risk it.
Jumps coming out immediately. G2's been caught a few too many times. And the Bard ultimate there, just gonna respect it in the end. Now it feels to me like, I mean, Vegas, what do G2 have to do to win a late game team fight? Because at this point, it looks like we're gonna make it to the late game, I say. Kind of with bated breath, waiting for one stun to connect and for that to be entirely wrong. But we approach late game, there's so much damage on this G2 lineup. You can see Lord Dominic's on 2 members, Black Cleavers across the board. They're ready to kill tanks, they're ready to kill anybody, but I feel like one mistake and it all falls away.
Well, I feel like what we have to go back to for G2 is the poke that they have. We've already seen the potency of Corki. We can see that even though Sven isn't going towards a pokey build, he still has a lot of opportunities to just harass his opponents. You compare that, or you pair that up with the harass coming out from Expect as well, and every time Misfits try to set up around an objective, you punish them for it. You throw down this poke, you throw down this harass, and you try and find these opportunities based off the fact that you have higher health bars than Misfits, and then you look to try and force a fight.
May all come down to how high they can keep those health bars and how exactly G2 can shut down the major carries for the side of Misfits.
This is good.
Oh. Sven potentially in trouble. In goes the Tom Kench. Arrow gonna get flashed away. Mithy pulling backwards. Power Beagle going in. Snare's gonna connect. Shen coming in as well. Bard coming over. Maybe looking for an engage there. Tempered Fate lands on Sven. That's disastrous. Mithy has to be ready to get in there. It's not going to be enough. Sven, no, he's safe. He will be alive for now. Now Trick moving in as well. Expecting to flash over the wall. The blast cone up and available. Mithy going to try to take it. It's not enough. Misfits are tearing G2 apart, but they've only taken Mithy down thus far, and the poke is coming back. Trick is ready to play cleanup if they overstep, but such a close fight.
That is how you support, ladies and gentlemen. Mithy giving his life away to keep Sven alive, but could it have not been enough? Because now, Misfits, they have 4 members. Kakao is going to return to this Baron, and with the rate this is going down, they should be able to pick up this objective.
Trick is here, but Kakao is ready to stop him from going in. It may just come down to if Kakao can stop the jump over. Trick, will he leap over? He's not going to go for it in the end. Chasing in, maybe hoping to stop some bees. Perks is on
Cacao.
the way. There's the package. Oh, flashing over. Perks wants a party. He goes in, but it's too late. Perks is bot time for his team. No one can commit to him. G2 is cleaning up. In goes Trick. He's done, but the rest of the team is here. Members picked off from the side of Misfits, but still a win for them in the end.
What could have been a very dangerous package actually enables G2 to get a bit of kills off the back end. Really good decision from Perks. He does sacrifice his flash for it, but at least they take some Baron off of two of the big potential split pushes from Misfits.
And we talked about G2 as risk takers, and that certainly was a risk because Elder Dragon is alive, and we'll take a look at exactly what this could cost.
But this whole play was forced off the back of Sven just ever so slightly being out of position, something that we do not really associate with this kind of a player. So Mithy, he has to give his life away to enable the survival of Sven, and then the fact that Power of Evil was forced back so early on meant that he had to go back to base 4 versus 4, and this is the decision from Perks. Cacao doesn't even realize the collapse is coming out. He goes to the flash, and then Perks just goes in, immediately dashing out so that Alfari cannot get the taunt, and then Expect and the rest of his team just go on carrying on with the chase. And like, I mean, yeah, they get the blue buff. That's one buff that they deny 2, get 1. I mean, that looks like a favorable trade to me, but nevertheless, you still have to worry now about Alfari having this Baron buff on the side lane, drawing side lane pressure, and honestly, the immense pick potential that Misfits does have, because look, no flash on Sven, no flash on Perks, no flash on Expect, and no flash on Mithy.
And death cap on Power of Evil, so the LeBlanc only gets more terrifying. It's not just magic penetration anymore. He's got everything to back it up. And as we talked about earlier, Elder is on the table. G2 have to be ready for a fight because Misfits have 4 dragons, and it doesn't matter what 4 they've got. They pick up that Elder Dragon, and they'll be able to kill anyone and everyone on the side of G2.
And I feel like G2 just have to give away this Elder Dragon, because with the lack of flashes, with the ease of Misfits being able to engage, you're just asking to lose the game right there. So I think this is a smart decision from G2. Just give it away. It's too risky. And now Misfits in a prime position with 4 dragons under their belt. I actually kind of feel like that should be 5, because I think they picked up a second Mountain Drake too. But they are in a great position right now.
Yeah, 38 minutes of 5K gold lead, 4 dragons, the Elder Dragon buff. Baron on a few members as well. This game is going about as well as Misfits can hope for at this stage. It started with action on the bottom side, and it's going to continue that way as they push up. Baron, Elder Dragon, everything in their favor right now. It's going to take a miracle for G2 to win this fight.
Bear in mind, 3 Cloud Drakes, you actually get 50% of the movement speed on top of that. These guys like are so fast right now.
Thank you, Betty. It's so fast. Love it.
So fast.
Of course, 2 cannon minions on the top side means Expect may have to move in to contest that, but have to be aware of the true damage coming in from Alfari. Shen, maybe not the best scaler in so many of these situations, but Elder Dragon can kind of balance that out.
I mean, like, you won't die to Expect at this point, and with all these Baron empowered minions knocking on the door of this tier 2 in the mid, things are definitely going to be difficult. They also have to respect the damage of Power of Evil, because he could just W in and one-shot Sven.
Best hope. They don't even have a reliable CC to keep him down. Would have to burn the Varus ultimate to keep Power of Evil locked in that skirmish. G2 pulling back. They're holding on to the 1 mid lane tower they can. I mean, this is it. This is not the final stand, but this is where G2 may want to hold. Oh, Temper Fate not going to connect. Sven has to flash out. Eaten up by Mithy. Good play overall. Cacao looking for the knockup. G2 burning everything to stay alive. Misfits just happy to take the tower. Yeah,
I mean, they're playing this calm and collectively, forcing more flashes out. Look, now both flash gone from the bottom lane of G2. Perks is still on cooldown, and this is one of the big reasons why Perks, or G2 in general, are really struggling to clear out these waves, because typically you would consider their comp to have pretty good wave clear, but it's all this pick potential from the Ashe, from the Bard, that is making it so difficult for them to sit underneath these turrets and keep them alive for very long.
You got to think, a lot of that wave clear reliant on this Varus build being able to get into melee range to clear out the waves, has the Runans. The poke not quite as effective against those Baron minions, but doesn't have the freedom to approach the wave at any point, because it's not just Power of Evil that can lock them up, it's the Shen, it's the Rek'Sai, each one of them signaling death. Power of Evil would be more than happy to pick up a free kill if anyone is CC'd on the side of G2. Setting the sights at least a little bit for now on Trick. The farm being divvied up as it can be among the members of G2, rationing it out at this stage of the game. So many members that need more items if they want to fight.
Now we have to remember that the later this game goes, the less value that gold difference means. So 40 minutes in, 9,000 gold in favor of Misfits definitely seems very good, But at this point in the game, that does not mean that G2 are so far behind that they could not win out on a team fight. Bear in mind, look at the Corki. Has completed 3 major items. Like, he definitely dishes out the damage. It's simply a matter of whether or not they're actually going to be able to, because so far, Misfits have actually avoided all full-on 5 versus 5 team fights. They've just been finding picks. They've just been finding small opportunities where they can just accrue these small advantages.
And 6,000 of that gold is put into both PowerView and Hans Sama, 3K advantages for each of them. So 1 extra major item completed. But as the only major damage sources on this team, if they die fast, if they die early, once again, that gold lead disappears instantly, and it could be a 1 fight for G2. But it feels next to impossible with Kakao and Alfari so consistently on the front lines.
Now, I feel like the next objective for both these teams is going to be the Baron that's spawning in about 1 minute's time. As we mentioned earlier on, at this point like this, it's very difficult for Misfits to actually siege because they don't have the fastest tower-taking team. They do have the ability to dive, but it's very risky against the Tahm Kench. And in all honesty, the amount of disengaging damage that G2 actually have in their composition. So Misfits, the Baron is the most reliable way for them to close this out, and already they've ascertained a lot of vision around the top side of the jungle, and this is where G2 are really going to be tested, because I feel like that it's so difficult with the comp that they have to just walk into this jungle with so much pick potential on the side of Misfits. And remember, Sven and Mythic still no flash.
Yeah, we take stocks, everything available for Misfits. PowerView will have that LeBlanc ultimate available shortly. Pretty easy for them to start a fight if they want to. Maybe burn some of these cooldowns to look for picks, but Pure Patience coming out. They know they can get the Baron. They should be comfortable to bait this out. We've seen it from them once before already. Maybe hoping to start one more fight just like the last one in the jungle of G2.
I mean, the fascinating thing is, if you look back to G2 versus Fnatic in week 1, it was G2 who were doing this exact play to Fnatic, and now we see a flank from
Tahm
Mithy.
Kench. Mithy may have overextended. Hans Sama getting the Shen ult as he comes in. Mithy getting cut
dead.
down. He's popped. Doesn't even get to use the thick skin. Trick now running to safety, but Kakao reads the jump, and he may be caught out as well. In comes the redemption, but it's not going to be redemption for G2 as Misfits continue to clean up the fight. Sven kiting back as best he can, but there's just not enough in the kit of Varus to keep him alive.
And this is the risk that we were talking about for G2. They gambled to try and force a play in the mid lane, and things go horribly wrong. They knew that they were running out of options, and now Misfits are in a prime position to take the first inhibitor of the game.
The Kings of Europe caught on the back foot by the new kids on the block. Misfits moving in, veterans and rookies alike, more than content to break through this base here. G2 continually forced back. Misfits moving in, maybe looking to go for the throat here. 5 seconds on Mithy. They are so far ahead. It's a 12K gold lead. The Mountain Drake's there. G2, can they hold it?
Alfari's taking a lot of damage. This is very risky.
Post coming in from Perks. The arrow goes wide. Perks trying to make his way into the backline, but just hops to safety, maybe expecting a little bit more of an engage. Expect is going to go down, but no! Misfits picking up game 1 in this best of 3 and an absolutely dominant performance.
I feel like questions have been answered, Mr. Dracos. When you look at things, could Misfits deal with the Kings of Europe? Could the new kids really deal with all of the experience and the world contenders of G2? And so far, it looks like that they certainly can.
And the other question's been answered, which is, could G2 deal with LeBlanc? And the answer is no. The answer is no. Maybe they have something else up their sleeve if they want to let it through again, but that was absolute devastation. And it's not just the LeBlanc. It was a beautifully executed bot lane play coming in from the Misfits overall. And it's just, you could not have a worse champion to benefit from those kills. Maybe Katarina, but I can't really think of much else that's going to snowball better than LeBlanc in that scenario.
2-0 right off the bat. First blood, followed up by a quick kill after that. Then you also get the first tower of the game, so you get a bit of extra gold. Like, you couldn't have asked for a better start.
Well, we're going to have to see how the analyst desk feels about that, because let's take a start. Ooh. Messed it up. Go, analyst desk, go.
We're going. We're going. And actually, we were ready to go 25 minutes ago. Is that fair, Crepo? Not 20.
Or 15.
15.
Yeah, 15. Give it 15. Yeah, 15.
Yeah.
15 is fair.
So that is fair. We're going to move on and take a look at how first Misfits got the advantage, and then we're going to talk a lot about how they couldn't accumulate more gold, it seemed, for about 10-15 minutes, and then in the end, they did win. Picks and bans-wise, what did you guys think? I do want to bring up something that Perk said on the desk last week. He said, out of the must-bans in Rengar, Camille, and LeBlanc, LeBlanc is the only one that you can leave open because you should be able to beat them if it's open for the other team. Just throwing that out there.
I'm not a good player, so Trashy.
I don't know about that statement because
whenever I see LeBlanc on the enemy team, I don't really have a good taste in my mouth. So
Do you enjoy life playing versus LeBlanc?
not really. I think actually for me it's fine, but probably for AD carries it's not that fun. Probably it's like squishy supports too.
There's actually a lot we were talking about the pick and ban, but the main point that I kind of boiled down to is just this Thresh ban here, because it's really weird why they would do that. I think if you're willing to play Tahm Kench into Thresh, which is a fine matchup, you could just late pick. I think the only reason they were banning Thresh is because they didn't want the Tahm Kench ban out on the other side. This is G2, of course. But it does mean that Ignar is making a mark on a support that is barely getting banned out, because it means Mithy is now willing to play versus Ignar's Thresh without Tahm Kench.
And that was our featured matchup. And you said, you know, you don't get kills in lane that easily normally in a matchup. But then bottom lane, LeBlanc gets a ton of kills, actually 2.
You don't get kills to it too.
So how much of this is Ignar?
It starts out well, right?
Yeah, I actually think like him hitting the Q here makes the gank work, because now the Devour is down, and then Kakao comes in, waiting patiently with the flash. Excellent play by him, and then they just full commit. I think they could kill Sven here, but they apparently knew that Power Revo was coming too, right?
So ahead of the play, right?
Getting double kill for your mid laner here is not that bad either, right? So I think really good setup by Misfits, and this kind of set them up for success in the game.
I think they made a small execution error in leaving Sven alive, but they obviously had the backup for Power Revo coming down. Luckily, he got 2 kills and he started snowballing. But that was just, from a macro point of view, a beautiful play.
Yeah,
that is Jungle's dream, right? You're lane ganking Rek'Sai from behind. Your support gets the defensive cooldown, either the flash or the Devour down, and then it's really easy to play out. Sven had the perfect flash, but then even then you can get.
And I also think for like from Alfare's point, it's perfect too, because he was getting pressured a lot on top, and he wants Ashen to kind of get out of the lane and make a play, and instantly when he hits 6, they make a play on bot and get tower, and then the game is just open, and it's perfect for Shen.
Game is open, and Power of Evil gets another 3 kills. Mid lane is another replay we wanted to take a look at, which makes the snowball go even harder.
Yeah, it's just G2 trying to CJ, but you see what the composition from Misfits can definitely do here. They have 2 globals, they have the Bard ulti. What I really like the most here, Ignar is a smart player, because look at this Q. It doesn't go to Sven, he looks for the double stun on Mithy and expect, because he knows that otherwise the Devour will save Sven. And in the midst of all of it, then obviously Power Revo can start clearing up. I just really love this replay, because Ignar gets the Bard ulti, he gets the high IQ Bard Q, and then he sets up with a double stun for Power Revo.
It's almost like watching Crepo on Bard. It's
almost like watching Crepo down in Diamond 2.
Yeah, it's like I've seen your stream, right? And it's almost like you, almost.
The idea is there, execution not so much.
Yeah.
So LeBlanc has tons of kills, and then comes the thing that we see often in teams that are just playing their first kind of series in the LCS, have played very well in Challenger. How to close a game like this out, and what is keeping the Misfits from closing this out in the next 10 minutes?
I think they were trying too hard to do something mid, when in reality they're playing against the Varus and Corki, and it's really easy for them to just wave clear mid. They should play more on sides. They have a Shen ult, and Shen was actually beating Jace 1v1, and LeBlanc should just pressure really hard in the side lane when Rek'Sai is like trailing him, and then they can 3-man on the side of LeBlanc's side, and that should be the play they're making. But they didn't really push their lead, and they were just playing for Drakes, they were playing for Vision, but didn't really utilize the Vision, so it was really slow game for them.
Yeah, we actually have a replay of that to highlight that, because you can go for that style where you put a lot of pressure on the side lane, but you can also obviously go for a Baron bait, and this is the Vision toggle real quick, showing you what the kind of the Vision on Baron Asher was. If they just clear that blue trinket, it's really easy for Misfits to take complete control of the left side of the map. But they were so hesitant to pull the trigger trashy that they actually went all the way to the right side of the map here to do the dragon.
And I think the thing we should point out in this clip is we can see the 2 pink wards on the top side for G2. Those should be cleared, because they should have so much control that the pink shouldn't be there. And with removing them, they can just control the Nash and play towards that and make picks when they clear the Nash vision. But in this situation, they actually have a ward in the Nash pit when doing this pick, so G2 is feeling safe.
Yeah.
And I think they could have played it better, but it's obvious to see that they're a new team, or like still working on executing properly.
Yeah, the real reason we included that last replay is exactly what Tashi said. There was a ward in pit, so Perkz knows that they're not doing Baron, so he knows that they must be picking him off, so he's ready to act on a Bard ulti. So you saw him front step the Bard ulti and then Valkyrie out, because he knew it was coming. If you're panicking and you don't know where they could be hiding, and they might as well be doing Baron, that's like, it's the implication of the Baron threat that makes the picks happen. And Misfits never really pull that trigger.
Yeah, and a point as well, like if they don't have vision with their comp G2 is running, it's so hard for them to face check, because they don't really have a tank. So it should be a lot easier for Misfits to actually close out the game. That was.
If I would have listened to this analyst segment without knowing how the game ended, I would have thought that G2 won it right after the 20-minute mark. Begs the question, if you're Misfits and you're going up against the reigning champions in Europe and you win that first game, does it really matter how you did it?
Yes.
Yes.
Because you aim for perfection in this game, and that should always be your goal. Like, even in win or lose, you're looking to improve your play.
And they should just watch
And that's
the segment.
that's really beautiful. But more importantly, you're very likely to not get a LeBlanc again, and even when you get it, you're probably not getting 5 kills on it in the early game. So
That's true.
If you can't snowball and it takes you 20 minutes to close with a 5-kill LeBlanc, then you may have issues in the remaining part of the best of 3.
But then again, if you're a good team, you can leave LeBlanc open and give it to enemies. So.
And G2 is on blue side, so we'll see what they decide to do and if they can fight back in game 2 against Misfits when we come back right after this. We need a break.